Hi, you guys. So I'm going to come on today. I know that we are just getting these Zoom calls back to going, but I wanted to take a little bit different approach today. I wanted to actually present on a new topic, and this is kind of going to be a series, as I know that several of you are starting to build your clientele, and I want to do whatever I can to help you continue to learn. And it's not just remembering, it's not just about what we put our clients through, but it's about the relationships that you build with your client along the way. So, wanted to start off. The topic is building client relationships, and we're going to really hone in today on kind of a scary topic, which is actually losing clients, because I think this is probably, as new teacher, this is probably one of our biggest fears, is actually starting to work with somebody and then losing them. So we're going to go over the top 5 reasons that we lose clients, and we're going to kind of talk about some strategies to help you navigate when those sorts of things happen. And just to be really transparent, it does happen. It is part of working with human beings. You have a lot that goes into working and training people. And so you just need to remember, number one, to give yourself grace when these things happen. But number two, just keep learning all of the lessons and do your best to always try to improve and become a better teacher so that you lose less and less and less clients over time. That is your goal. So that you really do build relationships and you build a business from those relationships. So, the number one reason why we lose clients, this is actually huge, and it is the fact that our clients have a lack of results. And this is, again, one of the most common reasons that clients may leave. If they're not seeing the progress that they expect, they may become discouraged and they'll lose motivation. And so, as a teacher, a movement teacher, motivation is huge. Not only do they have to have some sort of motivation to spend money for the service that they are paying you for, but they also have to have motivation to schedule out time to be able to make that work. And then again, they are paying money to come and see you and get progress towards their goal. So this is why it's very, very important for you to know your clients' why and be able to actually help them track that and constantly remind them of the things that you're doing in the session and why they're important for the client to achieve their goals. You have to point out these little mini progress moments, because oftentimes clients, again, they do get discouraged. They think, oh, I want to get rid of my pain, and this is supposed to help me get rid of my pain. But they need to know it's going to take time. So you've got to do your job as a teacher, and let's be realistic about these goals, and have that talk with them, because sometimes if we don't have that talk and we're not realistic about those things with our clients, they do feel like they're not getting the results that they want and the time that they want. So some tips for this: number one, talk to your clients, make sure that they're engaging with you during the session. Number one, make sure they're having fun. Number two, make sure that they do feel like they're working hard, and that they're actively, when they engage with you, that they're actively saying they feel a difference. One thing you can do that's really easy before you start and end each session, just asking them how their body's feeling today. And then how, after they did a certain exercise or after the full session, how do they feel now? And so just asking them to evaluate their sense of how they feel is really, really powerful, because they say out loud, they have to actually check themselves. And, they're gonna kind of know, oh wow, I do feel really a lot better now, or yeah, my hip isn't hurting me now. That's so awesome. And then you kind of joke with them and you can say, well, hopefully it lasts till the next session I see you. And vice versa, right? So you want to just make sure that you're encouraging them also during their session, even when something's hard. You want to make sure you're challenging them. If you're not putting them through exercises that mentally and physically challenge them, they are going to feel like they're not working towards the goal. They need to feel like, I wouldn't say you're trying to make them burn and sweat. That is not our goal. But you want to allow them to experience a exercise that's going to specifically target where they're weak a little bit, and get their brain and their body connected in a way in that position to either assess it, again, push them to a point that they can achieve that exercise. And then from there, hey, how did that go? That went so great. Last week we tried that and you could only hold it for 2 seconds. Or last week we tried that and you couldn't do that on one red. We had to do it on a blue. Or last month, whatever their time frame is of that. So you constantly want to be pointing out these things because this is how they experience progress. They're not just going to magically say after every session, I feel so much better. I'm so grateful for you. They're not going to say that. You have to actually get them to talk about it and cultivate this conversation with them to actually make them feel like it's worth it. Because again, as Pilates teachers, as movement teachers, we are not measuring weight. We're not measuring body fat. We're not doing anything in those ways to be able to prove results to people. Well, all we have to go off of is what they feel and how they see themselves and the ways that they're actually getting stronger. So that is a couple of tips for helping them to improve and experience, better results. So the second reason that we can have clients leave is ineffective training, and this also is huge. And I know for a lot of new teachers, this is where they feel like maybe they lose people, and this could be why you're losing clients if you are losing clients. If the training program is not tailored to their individual needs, or if it's too challenging or too easy, clients may lose interest. So I'm going to give you a example. So way back when I first started to teach clients in the Texas area, one of my clients came in and she flat out told me she'd never tried Pilates, and she was like, I don't like sweating. But I know I need to work out because I have a lot of problems and pain in my knees and my hips. I tried personal training and the trainer literally almost made me get sick, and I never came back. So I don't want to do anything that's that level of strenuous. I'm just being honest. And so honestly, like as a teacher, that was really intimidating. This client telling me they don't want to sweat, they don't want to work super hard. But when she told me her pain points, that allowed for me to say, okay, I know just what you need. And with Pilates, there's something for everybody. You can push them to points that, are appropriate for their goals and or what they're looking for. And so over time, we started out with 1 time a week privates, and then she added twice a week privates because she was really feeling the difference and loved it. And she didn't do any other workout program other than her walks around the neighborhood, which she was very religious about every single day with her husband. And she said after about a month of doing 1 time a week, how she wanted to add a second time because she already felt the difference in her walks. It already felt better. She could enjoy other activities in her life. And she knew that it was this change is what helped her. So we added the 2 time a week. And then I'll never forget this. This is a continuation of that story with that client. She went away to Cabo for a trip. And there was a Pilates studio affiliated with the condo that she was staying at, this golf club. And she took a Pilates session and she came back and she was like, oh my goodness, let me tell you about my experience. I took a Pilates class over in Cabo and there was an order and it was really hard and like I was sweating. She was like, I kind of liked it though. And I couldn't believe she was telling me this because she is the one that told me, I don't want to sweat. I don't want to work hard, whatever. And she was like, I felt like I really needed that. And she was like, I can't believe I'm saying this to you, but can we amp up our training? Because I think I want to work a little harder and get a little bit stronger because I couldn't believe some of the things we were doing. I didn't know I could do them and it was really hard. And so when I go, I want to still take with her. It'll be like a cool progress track. And I was like, that's awesome. I was like, I can't believe you're telling me this, but absolutely we can push a little harder. And so we found ways to do that over time. And she still trains at the studio to this day. It's been 6 years and she's doing amazing. And she's been through a lot of different changes with her body, but she's still doing amazing. And now she comes 3 times a week. So just a little note, and it's been 6 years. And so know that if you can adjust your training protocols and your plans to specifically tailor to the individual needs, that is where you're going to really see results with the client. And honestly, they're going to be happier because they know that when they came in the door, you changed your plan for them. And this also is a really big deal whenever you start working with a client and you've reviewed their client forms. You need to know if they have any previous health issues, injuries, any kind of recent falls or any kind of pain. You want to know these things so that your program, you can tailor that to specific needs. One more story on this one, and we'll move to the third reason. But I had a teacher a couple of years ago that worked for me, and I got one of our regular clients with this teacher. And the client had told the teacher about her pain points, and she had a 4-pack of sessions that she had purchased to do private training with this teacher, and they were, $90 a session, somewhere in there. And she didn't renew her package. And I happened to be at the front desk and I asked her, "Hey, how's it going with this trainer? Are you enjoying it? I noticed, you have you finished your package." And she was like, "Yeah, how many do I have left? How many sessions?" And I told her, "Oh, you finished your last." And she was like, "Oh, okay, good. Sounds good. I'll see you later." And I was like, "Oh, do you have a second to talk?" And she was like, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Well, you're not going to renew? Like, you mind me asking, like, why?" And so I started to ask her, and she said she didn't want to talk to me about it because it was with another teacher, and I was, the manager at the time. But I said, "Well, do you mind me asking? Because I want this teacher to be busier. So if I can help her be more busy with the feedback from you, that would be really great." But I said, "But you don't have to give it to me if you don't feel comfortable." And so she said, "Okay, no, I want to help." And she was like, "Well, basically, I told the teacher that I had knee problems, and it just felt like everything we were doing was hurting my knees. Like I left the sessions and my knees felt worse. And I told her the next time, and we still did like the same things. And she just kept telling me to push through it and that it would get better and I'd get stronger." And then I kind of was like, "Oh, goodness. Okay." And after many conversations with this teacher, I realized that she was not, she thought she kind of knew everything. And she thought that, you know, the feedback I was giving her, she didn't think it wasn't true, but I don't think she felt like she had the tools to really help this client. And so I tried to point her in the right direction. However, she took it a little bit defensively, and it didn't really end up working in terms of her working with us because she wasn't interested in digging deeper and finding out more information. And so, first of all, everyone's different. But I do believe that if you are working with a client and you can tailor the sessions to them, even if you get a client that you don't really know why they're having this pain, maybe they have this mysterious pain that you don't understand. There's so many resources out there, let alone you guys are doing your training and you're part of this community. There's so many resources for you. You have me, you have other teachers that you can ask questions to. We want to be a pool of resources for you and help you when these moments happen, because we have all lost clients because we didn't know enough or we didn't change something. And so it's really important that you learn while you're working with your clients. Go home, do your homework, research what a labral tear is if your client tells you they have one. Research the different types, research what exercises are bad or good or whatever, however you want to word it for that, and what you need to watch out for. And that is how you improve your sessions and tailor them. You can't just, your client tells you it's painful, you don't want to continue to do the same program with them every single time. If they're having pain, you've got to change something. And if you don't change something, then they will, and they'll stop coming. So just kind of keep that in mind, whether it's private clients or classes, you've got to keep them progressing, or you've got to keep their sessions individualized. And absolutely, like if something's too hard or too easy, that you can lose them. And I think for me, the too easy one is always a trick. It's like, how do you know something's too easy? Well, number one, you ask them, you have to ask your clients for feedback. And what I mean by that is not asking them at the end of the session, "Did you feel like it was a good workout?" That's not where we're asking. We want to ask our clients, "Did you feel that tone in your muscle when I gave you that correction?" Because you can tell when someone thinks the exercise is too easy, they tune out, they start looking around the room, they start checking their watch, they start disconnecting to the group, they disconnect to you, or they don't connect with you after class. If they leave very, really quickly after class and you don't have a conversation with them, they may not have enjoyed the class. You don't know. Sometimes people have to rush out, but I would say a lot of the times, like, I try to make sure anybody that's new to my classes, I ask them, how was the class? I hope you enjoyed it. You did really well on this exercise, this exercise. Keep working hard. I'd love to see you again. Like, I really make sure with my clients in class that I'm going and I'm following up and I'm engaging with them afterwards and before, because the more that you build that relationship, the more likely you're going to be able to read your client and know, are they enjoying the session? Is it too hard? Is it too easy? They're going to have a more open line of communication and actually tell you what they think instead of withholding that information and just not coming back to classes or sessions. So, a third reason this goes right into that conversation is poor communication. And this is so loaded. I'm just going to give you a couple of nuggets. But poor communication can lead to clients not coming back. If you're not communicating effectively with your clients, they may feel unheard or unsupported. And this goes in a ton of different directions. It can be something as simple as the way you said something to them. They didn't like it. It can be you cued something for them that felt uncomfortable. It could be that, I have seen teachers tell clients to their face that they need to be more consistent and that, they need to stop going to this class because that's not helping them. They need to come more to their class. I've seen that type of, behavior, and that does not work well. I've also seen, where teachers essentially, the way that they give cueing, again, can be very more negative. Like if you're constantly telling your clients not to do something, don't do this, don't do that. Negative cueing can really have a big impact on communication between clients and teachers, and clients can feel confused about, are they doing something right? You can also have poor communication with regards to your pricing or your schedule, or a missed like cancellation, policy communication. You can have poor communication about whether they were out of town or not and wanted to schedule. And so it's really important that you are communicating these things. Another layer is, let's say that they do have some pain going on and they, wanted to cancel their next session because they had so much pain after the last session. Well, communication wise, you need to call them. Like, they're your client, you're building a relationship with them. You need to call them and ask them, like, hey, like, I'm so sorry. Like, tell me about what you're feeling. Like, let's talk through this. I always start when I work with all my clients, I tell them the only way we can work together well is if you talk to me and I talk to you. And especially if they're dealing with a rehabilitative issue, it's important that they know from the beginning, they can tell you if something hurts. They can tell you if they're afraid of something, if they don't want to do something. You have to go ahead and knock those barriers down with them and tell them that they are allowed to tell you this. This is specifically probably in a private session. If they're in a group session, you can still let them know, like if something doesn't feel right, to kind of, let you know. But it's a little bit harder, obviously, when you have a group. But it's important to me, like, to establish this sense of communication and what that is, what the structure of that should be like for each client before you start working with them, so they know what to expect, and they also, know how to tell you and communicate things to you so nothing gets misconstrued, feelings are not hurt, and you're all set. Because clients can make a judgment based on how you say something to them, how you handle a situation. And ultimately, you have to remember it's about building relationships. It's not just about building um, better bodies. I think we forget very often that we're working with human beings, and human beings have personalities, they have a history, they have fears, they have, things in their own mind that need to be um, conquered. And so it's our job to be their encourager and be their cheerleader, and also communicate and show them how to communicate, because most people don't, especially when it comes to their body. A lot of people are not as in tune with it as they should be. And so it's our job to get them more comfortable with that, and hopefully help them improve their own internal communication between their thoughts, their fears, and their body awareness and sensations. Okay, and then number 4 reason could be lack of motivation. And this, sometimes they lose their motivation to work out, right? Because maybe they're tired, maybe they were sick recently, maybe they're extremely busy, maybe they got a new job and their schedule just flip-flopped. Maybe it's the summertime and they don't want to go in because they want to be at the pool every day and they're a teacher. Who knows? So it could be due to personal reasons, stress, or other factors. And a lot of times for this particular one, there's not a lot we can do. What you can do, again, is remember they're a human being, and you can listen to them, and you can stay in contact with them, and you can follow up with them. If they are needing to take a break, write down the notes, because write down in a note to follow up with them and reach out. And again, because a lot of times people do start something before they're ready, or they start something and they want to do it, but their life gets in the way, things happen. And so just to follow up with them and know you care about them beyond just them being a body in your studio and being a body in your workout class, it makes a difference. And that's how I've grown the studio to be what it is. It's by building relationships and encouraging people and helping them feel more motivated when they don't feel motivation at all. So you have to do those things. But I would say for this one, again, there's not that much we can do other than try to change their perspective. You can try to encourage them to try something different. Like if they can't come to private sessions right now because of their schedule and they don't want to set up a regular time, then maybe encouraging them to take some other classes, or sending them some resources like, hey, you should get a foam roller at least for your house. So if you're not coming to sessions with me, don't stop moving. Because if you stop moving, you're going to lose all that work that you did leading up to now. So like get yourself a foam roller and, XYZ, whatever, however you want to say, just encouraging them to not stop what they're doing. So they don't ever stop the progress that they were achieving. Okay, and then the fifth reason that people, you could lose your clients is the cost, right? If the cost of your services becomes too high for clients, they may look for more affordable options. And that couldn't be more true, right? A lot of times when people start training with us, they do private sessions, and over time, they want to transition into classes. And so we need to be able to know our client and their financial means. So if they're starting with us and they've already implied from the beginning that due to financial reasons, they will not be able to do privates forever, if they've already implied this, then you need to start strategizing with them on how you can progress them to be ready for group classes. Because ultimately, if they're already telling you that, there's probably not going to be a lot of convincing that you can do. I mean, it just depends on the client and the reasonings, right? But the more options that you present to somebody that comes at you with the cost, the better for them and the better for you. Because ultimately, it would be nicer for a private client that I've worked with that I've seen progress in 4 to 8 sessions. It'd be nicer for them to go into a group class and continue to come and do the work and still have a few things they're fine tuning. It'd be nicer for them to progress to that more affordable option than it would be for them to just totally discontinue and stop coming at all, because then they don't get the benefits and now they've like dropped off the face of the earth and they aren't your clients at all, so you'd completely lose them. So for my advice on this one is just really try to be upfront from the beginning and know where your client stands regarding their pocketbook, and be realistic about what they want to do, what they want to accomplish. Help them strategize on a plan that's going to, you know, be appropriate for their schedule, for their needs and goals, but also for their pocketbook, because people are paying for these services. And so we've got to make sure that they have options, right? Okay, so those are the main reasons that we may lose clients. So here's some other thoughts around this. So for us, oftentimes we have, let's say, a client problem. So our client problem would be, in this case, maybe they're not achieving the goal that they want. And so that's why they came to us, right? Because they need help. They need a teacher. They need accountability, and they need a new type of workout to be able to fully embrace change and get better. So they're going to come to us, right? So we're going to create progress for them, which means we're going to help them set a goal, help them identify their why, And then their solution, the solution to this problem is the progression towards the solution, which is achieving the goal. And so this sequencing happens so frequently that we then repeat it, right? So this is how you keep a client and continue to build and progress them. This sequence constantly churns so that you keep your client. If they've achieved one goal, you have to identify the next one, right? And then at a certain point, sometimes they trust you so much that it's just they understand every time they come in, there's gonna be a new goal and they're gonna achieve new things, and they begin to trust you, and they begin to not be so needy about knowing what the goal always is and knowing that they're always going towards that goal and needing that proof. Eventually, they just start to feel it and they trust you. So that's where we're trying to get with our clients. So some quick little tips. We've talked about many of these already, but these are some additional resources for you to think about when you're trying to build your clients and relationships and create that environment for them to become a regular client and continue to come and not lose them. So we want to make sure as we are teaching them that we're using clear verbal directives. And when I say clear, I mean when you're teaching that you're saying what exactly you want them to do. You are not leaving them to question too much, because oftentimes I would say new teachers and sometimes teachers that haven't done a lot of continuing education, I will see them tell their client to do something and their client will not do exactly what the teacher was wanting. And the teacher says, "You're not doing it like XYZ how I asked." And then the client looks at them confused because they interpreted a different form or a different movement or a different something. So you need to get very clear verbal directives. You can also use your own body language or your own body to demonstrate things if someone is not getting it. The last thing we want to do is make somebody feel guilty or make somebody feel bad about not getting something. If you put some kind of judgment on them for not getting an exercise or not doing something the way that you're asking them to do it, they're going to feel a sense of, again, guilt, judgment, negative, disappointment, frustration, confusion, maybe. And that's the last thing we want, because that is a negative. All of those things are negative. And so if you have a negative experience in something you're paying money for, maybe $100 for the service, why would you pay for it? Because most people want to come and feel positive and get better and feel happy and joyful. They can feel negative like out in the real world, probably, because that's what's going to happen to them. So we need to just make sure that we are setting them up for an encouraging, supportive, joyful session. So you've got to, on this note, you've got to be tone conscious. You need to be kind and inviting. When your corrections have a certain tone and you sound like their mother, or you sound like someone that's just telling them they did something wrong, they pick up on that and they don't like it. I don't know many clients that like it. And so again, if you're losing clients, maybe it would be a good idea to record yourself teaching a session and ask the client if that's okay if you record, or teach someone else, a tester, teach another apprentice or another teacher, and ask if they don't mind if you record it and listen to yourself and how you're teaching and cueing, because I want you to be self-reflecting all the time. That's the only time we get better, because we don't always have somebody like me, a mentor, watching all your sessions and telling you corrections. You're going to have to do that for yourself. So one of the best strategies is to record yourself and be able to listen to that. You want to also make sure that you're personalizing corrections. So whether it's a group class or whether it is in a private setting or duet setting, giving a very specific correction to a person is very helpful. And doing it in a way, again, that's not negative or judgmental, but that's helpful and informative and clear is very, very important and powerful. Use your eyes and assessment tools. So we want to use our eyes and assessment tools to see things. And then from there, you're going to teach the body to the body in front of you and read the client's energy and reaction. So how did they take the cue that you just gave them? Did they apply it? If they didn't apply it, chances are they don't understand what you're asking, and you're going to have to either rephrase it, show them, or make it a teaching moment where you break something down and you use those concepts of deconstruction to really hone in on that skill set or teach them something there in that moment. Because most times we do want our client to progress. And if we just blow through something, or we just nonchalantly say, oh, you didn't really get that, we'll have to keep working on it. That's not very nice. That's not very kind. And it makes them actually, again, feel negatively, and they wonder what you're talking about. They may ask you, they may not. They may just be like, I don't really know what she's talking about, but I'm just going to keep moving, right? So just take those into account. Pivot to progress or regress when needed. Again, like we said, a lot of times people will stop coming to sessions, or you're going to lose clients if it's too easy or too hard. So when you pivot in your teaching moments, that's when you choose to either progress somebody or maybe regress somebody and take them back a notch. And you've got to do that in a way that is reinforcing the client's why, like why they came in. Because if you don't reinforce in that moment, they don't understand why you're slowing it down or why you're taking it up a notch, and they might feel confused, or they just may not see the progress there. And that's a great moment to really imply progress. Even if we regress, even if we take someone back to deconstruct, and we focus in on a specific moment or topic of that concept, that doesn't mean that they are not progressing. Oftentimes going backwards and regressing into a deconstructed element of an exercise can help someone progress faster. But you have to say this to them, because sometimes they'll say out loud, oh, I couldn't do it, so you're having to make it easier. And you're like, you say, kinda, I want to break this down for you so that you understand the connection I'm looking for. And then we're going to go back and do this, XYZ, right? Then we also want to direct and guide clients one step closer to their goals with programming and teaching moments. So that is literally summing up the whole entire segment here. So if you're doing these steps, and I would say especially if the client is laughing and you're engaging with one another, there's an interaction that's positive, cheerful, happy. They're committed and excited to see you the next session and book with the next session. If there's an enthusiasm in their interactions with you, then chances are likely that you're in a good place with your client. But if you're in a place with your client where you're questioning whether they're enjoying their sessions, or questioning whether they really are getting what you're saying, you may need to do a little digging. And I would recommend absolutely doing that and trying to get to their why and their soul a little bit of why they're coming, because then you can prevent them being a lost client and not coming back. But if you're not proactive, and you just kind of like keep doing what you're doing, and you're not being proactive with the things they're telling you with their body language and their engagement, or their verbal communication around saying that it's too pricey or something like that. If you're not being proactive with that information and that intel, then chances are they may just not renew, and you may not see them again. So the more proactive and communicative that you are in that instance, the better. The better. Okay. And then I wanted to speak about one more thing. And what that is going to be is, hang on just a second. I'm just trying to get this bigger. Okay. Let me go in present mode. Okay. I wanted to talk about inspiration, because I think too, sometimes, again, we've spoken about this, several of us, sometimes it's hard to stay refreshed, especially if you're teaching a lot. And right now, a lot of what you're doing is you're maybe working with different bodies. And like, if you're working with anybody that has any kind of rehabilitative issues, or which is most likely almost all of your clients, again, it can be tough to figure out how to stay excitable about planning your lessons. And so I wanted to have a conversation about finding inspiration and going beyond Instagram, because I know that we could all Google and go on Instagram for days and see all these ideas. But what I want you to do is be independent of anyone else within your career as a teacher. You should be able to be so inspired by this sort of concept that you don't really need Instagram. Now, you can still go on Instagram and get ideas. Like, I see things all the time and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. But I go and I practice, and I have to find out what that feels like in my body and tailor, if I'm going to use that as inspiration, I still have to create my entire lesson around other topics and make sure it fits my clientele. So let's talk about inspiration. So inspiration is the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially to do something creative. So it's this drawing in maybe of breath and inhalation. And for us, I think one of the most exciting ways I like to be inspired by creating my sessions and classes and how I'm going to work with my clients is using themes. And I call it themes. So themes should bring the client into their body and mind to help build the principles of Pilates: concentration. It should also help facilitate connection, precision, and the objectives that you choose to organize your sessions around for your clients. So your cueing should connect the objective, like the goal of the session, to your theme. And your theme is basically a creative idea that you're going to come up with and say, I'm going to pick this theme today and I'm going to base my whole session around it. I'm going to use the theme and the objectives to tailor my session to this client. So themes make for a fun movement experience that clients are actively a part of, both physically and mentally. Being present and learning the art of concentration is what makes Pilates Pilates. So this is where we get that mind-body connection, and we can actually make our sessions a lot more intentional when we use themes. So this is a crazy slide, and I am going to do a full module on this, but I wanted you to have a sneak preview. And I love this. This is how I literally, over all the years of teaching, I have this key, is what I call it, this theme and ideas key that I pull from. Now, this has all just been in my brain all these years because I love this work and I do it all the time for my own personal workouts. And I don't like teaching the same thing twice because I feel like clients need change, they need difference. And that is why a lot of our clients like working out at our studio, because we never teach the same classes twice. Now, there are certain exercises that you may do every single class or every single session. However, they are always slightly different because of the intention that the teacher is putting behind it. So we're going to go through these. So number one, these are just creative like ideas for where to start with your sessions. So you can use props to come up with your classes or sessions. You could use a small fit ball. You could use 2-pound weights. You could use the magic circle, a stretch band. You could use the roll down bar, detach it, and use it on different equipment. You could use a foam roller. You could incorporate the box in different ways. And there's probably 1,000 more, right? But these are just some general ideas. And this is something that I recommend, whatever you're picking for your theme, and you're setting your intention. Again, these are through lines throughout your whole session and your whole class. This isn't like I'm going to go grab a ball for one exercise, or I'm going to go grab a magic circle for one exercise in the class. That would be using props for a different reason, maybe using it for a modification or a connection or a teaching moment, right? This, what we're talking about, this is a way to literally design an entire session and get creative and explore the through line of using maybe these props the entire session. You can also play with spring tension. So you could choose to do the entire class on one red spring. You could cue your class based on the eccentric control of the springs. So with every exercise, you could talk about what the spring is doing and what the client should feel and see with their spring. You could increase the load progressively over time. Like maybe you start with one spring and then maybe you add 2 springs throughout the class or the sessions. You could even use no springs on certain exercises for the class. However, that is a safety precaution because we have to be careful when we unhook the reformer from the springs, because it's designed to always have the springs. But there is ability for it to have no springs, so you could totally use that. I just want you to caution with whoever you're working with, because once we disconnect it from the end of the foot bar, then we lose a lot of ability to control. You could also use anatomical concepts. So something like, hey, we're going to really be hitting, my whole class today is going to build around teaching my clients about shoulder stability and mobility. So with this example, maybe I would do my warm up And then I would start talking about the terms of the shoulder blade and introducing them to concepts of mobilizing the scapula and different things. And then we'd progress up to some super stability stuff. And you could challenge that in different aspects on the equipment, whether it's the chair, tower, etc., right? You could talk about pelvic stability and mobility. You could talk about spinal stability and mobility. You could prioritize just the abdominals and really, really talking about the connection of those muscles. You could also strengthen the hips. That could be the entire class. You could also use this idea of general metaphorical themes. So, for example, at our studio, we have one theme every single month for the whole studio. And so I do that as a way to kind of encourage teachers to get creative and create kind of a through line. So if they go take a yoga class on Monday night and then they come and they take a Pilates class on Wednesday morning, they're hearing some of the same concept, but maybe they're taking that concept into a whole new direction. And it just creates a really fun, dynamic energy for our studio and for clients and for teachers too, right? Because we have to be creative with like what we're talking about within regards to the theme. So, or you could just have a more general theme for the class, like, okay, let's get better balance. Today's going to be all about balance. Let's release tension. So today that's going to be the theme of the class. So I'm going to incorporate the Pilates principles. I want to really make sure that I'm incorporating some stretching, some mobility, some breathing techniques, maybe, right? And maybe some spinal mobility. Or, for me, I'm really inspired by different seasons. So let's say, okay, for example, in the spring, when baseball season started, I was like, it's officially baseball season. So we're going to do some exercises related to images of the baseball players. So I used the roll down bar and put it up against put it in between the reformer straps. And we used it and did some of the side body, side lying series. Re-energize. You could totally use that idea. Like, what does that mean to re-energize? What about having better posture? What's required for that? So there's so many, like there's 1,000 things that you could do within all of these, right? So what I encourage you to do on a day where you're feeling creative, especially if you're teaching a lot, it really helps to just have like a spreadsheet or a journal where you just write down a bunch of ideas and you can pick like one a week, because a lot of times the clients you see on Monday are not going to be the same clients that you see on Thursday. So you can use that theme throughout your whole week and tailor the sessions or the classes specifically to those clients, but use those ideas and those intentions to help you select what exercises you're going to pick and, build out a class. You could also use the Pilates principles, right? Breathing, concentration, centering, precision, control, and flow. So, for example, let's say that I'm going to work on centering. I might have, if we started with, let's just give an example of a simple flow for a class. If I'm going to do footwork, maybe instead of the legs being hip distance apart, because we're working on centering, I'm going to pull their legs all the way together. And then from there, we do some abs, etc. Maybe I actually use the 2-pound weight, the ball, and I put that on their belly as we're working. And so when they do their ab curls, they're thinking about their actual center of their core where their belly button is. When they do their curls, then maybe I take the ball off, and then maybe if we do feet in straps, maybe I'm super specific about whenever they do scissors or circles, maybe I'm telling them to be very specific about when they open the legs and they close the legs. I want them to really find their midline and touch their feet together each time. So as they're opening and doing their circles, they're going to always come back and connect through the center. So it can be theoretical in how you're cueing. Get creative with it. It's really the sky is the limit. But these are just ways to bring in better, more effective fun cues and more effective fun sequences, right? You can also use the traditional, the classical order. Like let's say that you're having a week that you're like, wow, I'm really burned out from all these crazy ideas. I want to go back to the book. Let's look at the traditional and the classical order. Let's really hone in on that. So you could start with the mat, then proceed onto the reformer and choose some corrective exercises to end that challenge the client or give corrective or stretching, right? That's a lot of how like that classical traditional works. You have that order from your NPCP manual, and then you have the ability to do corrective at the end. And then, of course, there's these other two fun ones. So you could have a holiday or a seasonal theme. So let's say it's December. You could use the 12 days of Christmas and create variations from the different exercises. So as an example, we did this 2 years ago and it was so much fun. Clients love it. They literally love this stuff. Like they want to engage with you and have a good time, and they want to learn. And sometimes when you give them more of an intention, and or you take familiar exercises and you shake them up a little bit, they get really excited, and it's just, again, it's so much fun. So let's say it's December, the 12 days of Christmas, right? So I could literally take the rollback bar and I could do a whole series on the short box with the rollback bar, and I could joke about this being our pipe for the whatever Piper's piping. I already forgot the song, but let's just say that I was using the bar for all the short box stuff, and I could just have them, okay, now hold it in, and there's your pipe, and you're rotating left and right, right? There was like one I did, as it was kind of funny for the geese laying. I had the small ball, and I had them doing elephant, and we did a whole series with like single leg elephant and arabesque, and I put the ball behind their legs and in between their knees, so it was almost like a little, it says geese laying, so it was almost like an egg, and then I kept saying, don't lay the egg yet. And so it's just a really fun, quirky way to jazz up your sessions and, again, build that engagement and fun community within the sessions. And another fun one for the holiday theme was, like, we've done pumpkins and Pilates before at our studio. So I literally, normally the week leading up to Thanksgiving, the Wednesday before the Thursday, we have small pumpkins that we bring in, and you do a whole class with the real pumpkin, and it's like the small 4 pound, 5 pound ones. And it's just a lot of fun. And people, again, they love it. They love something a little bit different. Um, and it gets their brain going. It's a whole new prop, and it's just, again, it's a good time, and you're challenging them. And then, of course, there's also the concepts that we use in our teaching moments or progressions. You can use deconstruction of an exercise. So I could say the entire class, I want to prepare them, like our challenge for the day is to learn the front rowing, right? Front facing rowing, maybe I say, yeah, front rowing. So how would I maybe prepare them for that? Okay, well, maybe I create a whole progression where I deconstruct the entire sequence. So we start with, like, seated on a box, serving the tray, and then we add the flexion with the scoop. So I'm using that concept of layering and deconstruction to build out a series in the class. I could add stacking of the spine to bring the postural awareness. Then I could add the hinge and the arm reach together. And then I could add the circles, and then they could do all of that together in one big sequence, one big movement. So again, there's so many ways you could really take all these ideas and build out a class or build out sequences. But I highly recommend, just as you begin to teach more, especially the group classes, that you are planning and you have a theme for your class, because clients do better when they have something that they're focused on, and it helps them stay engaged with you. It helps them stay engaged with the movements, so that their brain isn't just thinking, oh, what's the next exercise? What's the next exercise? They're thinking about now the purpose of the exercise beyond the anatomical sense of it. They're thinking about the reason why. And then their brain also tunes into the creative side, which is so much fun. And they really enjoy it when you do get creative and you apply these kinds of skills. So just wanted to introduce you to this idea. Feel free to take a screenshot of this page so that you can, like, log it in your mind and or on another page. And I'll have it again. I'm going to do another course on this as we get more advanced into the lesson planning for classes for dynamic sessions. That's going to be where this is located. So you'll see this again, and I'll be explaining it again. But I wanted to give you a sneak preview because it's not published out yet. And I know quite a few of you are really ramping up your teaching, and I want this to be a tool for you that you can use right away. So enjoy it. I hope this is helpful, and I will see you guys again in another month for our next monthly meeting, and I'll put the date so that you guys have it. It should be on your Google Calendar because I have everything there. So anyways, I can't wait to see you again soon. And yeah, I really hope this has been helpful, and I know it was helpful for me. So see you soon.